Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
The missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in about that the mother has went for a wall, came home, now they can't find her.
Turn it over to another agency.
Chad, where are Lori's kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Once I told a lie, and I told my family, I had to keep lying.
Rex Heuermann is a deemed.
We haven't cleared anybody.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining me for another ATS News live stream. Please let me know if you can hear me in chat. If you haven't hit the like button and subscribe. It's much appreciated. And let me just get started off explaining what we'll be discussing. So as you guys know, I went out of town last weekend for my little one's birthday. I am back and I'm getting my feet wet with all the updates, including Delphi. And we'll be discussing those other cases shortly. But I think tonight we're going to cover the Gilgo Beach murders update. And there is a 4th charge. And this was the charge that we were waiting on. And it's official as of yesterday, this news broke. And this will solidify Rex Heuermann's involvement in connecting all these victims together, painting a bigger picture of what a real serial killer looks like. And it's going to be an uphill climb from the defense. And I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to see what kind of reasonable doubt the defense team will try and spin and weave. So we're here for the updates. I'm going to get right into sharing my screen. So it looks like from the chat that audio is good. And thank you, Mel Mac, Pointer Lover, Pepper, I see Delana, everyone here. Thank you so much for being here. I want to start by reading this article that just came out. Put my glasses on. Suspected Long Island serial killer Rex Heuermann charged with 4th Gilgo Beach killing. All right. Long Island serial killer suspect Rex Heuermann has been charged in connection with a 4th murder. Prosecutors confirmed in court documents on Tuesday. Suffolk County District Attorney's Office announced on January 16th that the 59-year-old former architect of Massapequa Park has been linked to the killings of Maureen Brainard Barnes through DNA evidence and has been charged with 2nd-degree murder, according to authorities. Brainard Barnes was one of the 4 women found buried in the same marshy, desolate area in Gilgo Beach in Long Island, New York in December 2010, all within 500 feet of each other. The other victims were identified as Amber Costello, Melissa Bartholomew, and Megan Waterman. All 4 women have worked as online escorts, aka sex workers, and were missing between 2007 and 2010. Heuermann was previously charged with the murders of the other girls that we just named in July and has pleaded not guilty to the killings. Brainard Barnes was last seen on July 9, 2007 in New York City after checking out of a Super 8 motel. She was found bound with 3 leather belts, one of which was used to tie her ankles. In Tuesday's filing, prosecutors claimed that burner phones were discovered that connected Heuermann to online searches for sex workers as well as porn searches, audio accounts of R, aka SA as we call it here, and a search that read autopsy photos of female. He allegedly used the alias Andy to communicate with sex workers online. Prosecutors further alleged that Heuermann was alone while his now estranged wife was out of town with the children when Brainard Barnes was killed in July 2007. This allegedly fit a pattern of him being alone during the alleged murders, which granted him unfettered time to execute his plans for each victim without any fear that his family would uncover or learn his involvement in these crimes, prosecutors said in court documents. Heuermann was allegedly linked to the previous 3 cases by other burner phones, which were used to arrange meetings with the victims, as well as by a piece of hair allegedly found on the bottom of a burlap bag used to wrap Waterman's body. He was also traced to a Chevrolet Avalanche registered to him that allegedly was seen at the time of Costello's disappearance. In searches, authorities found evidence that Heuermann was allegedly obsessed with the case and searched for articles about the task force that was formed to investigate the murders. We saw all this really sort of concerning searches that he was undergoing, Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney previously alleged. In a 14-month period, over 200 times, he's searching the information about the Gilgo investigation. He's trying to figure out what we were up to. According to authorities, included in his searches were why law enforcement not trace the calls made by Long Island serial killer and why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? Investigators also allegedly found hundreds of internet searches about SA and torturing women, child P and SA porn, as well as searches for his victims and their families. He was obsessively looking at the victims, but he's also looking at the siblings of the victims. Heuermann also allegedly seemed to be fascinated by serial killers and sleuthed online for 11 currently active serial killers and 8 terrifying active serial killers we can't find. Tierney said Heuermann was pretty surprised when he was arrested on July 13th near his office building in Manhattan. I think he lived his double life and he used the oh gosh, guys, you don't know what it's like reading live sometimes. It's like you know the words, but you just can't say it. And computers to shield himself from the rest of society, he alleged. Unfortunately for him and fortunately for us, he wasn't successful. So that was the first article I want to read. Skipping to the next one, which was new and I thought was interesting. Give me a second, guys. And thank you all for being here. Yes, Chase, there was a lot of pee and disturbing pee. And hello, Roxanne. Roxanne, I'm wearing the pajama shirt that you got me, the Calvin Klein pajamas. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Again, I know I thanked you guys for donating last week for my little one's birthday. We had a good time, and I just wanted to make sure you guys knew how grateful I am for you guys giving the super chats and cash apps and all that for her to have a good birthday. So this one is new today. Gilgo Beach killing suspect Rex Heuermann charged in 4th death. DNA on daughter's can helped link him to slayings. Rex Heuermann, the man who has been charged with the murders of 3 sex workers on Gilgo Beach, New York, was charged Tuesday with a 4th killing after DNA from his daughter's discarded energy drink can help tie him to the slayings. The charges in the suspected serial killings unsealed Tuesday at the Suffolk County Courthouse in Riverhead on Long Island are in connection with the death of Maureen Branyard Barnes, 25, whose remains were found near Gilgo Beach. Heuermann was considered a prime suspect in her death. He has already been charged in the deaths of Melissa, Megan, and Amber Costello, all found in high weeds near Gilgo Beach. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. Heuermann remained silent during Tuesday's brief court appearance. His estranged wife, Asa Ellerup, was in attendance. Interesting that she's still going there to support him. He's looking forward to fighting these charges, and we're doing that. And that's from Michael Brown, his attorney. He's being held without bail. Suffolk County DA Raymond A. Tierney said Branyard Barnes was an intellectual and a writer who cared deeply about the people she loved. She was a devoted sister, mother, and daughter, he said at a news conference. She is sorely missed by those that loved her. It has been an honor and a privilege to work these cases and provide that small measure of closure for the family members. Branyard Barnes' daughter, Nicolette, was 7 years old when her mother was murdered. Court documents state that Branyard Barnes had been restrained by 3 leather belts. Female hair found on the buckle of one of the belts tied Heuermann to the crime. Her loss drastically changed the trajectory of my life, she said at the news conference. There were countless times I needed her and she was not there. I remember she read to me every night, and now I can no longer remember the sound of her voice. I wish she was here today, but she was taken from us. Nicolette Branyard Barnes said in the indictment, has brought hope for justice for my mom and my family. The remains of all 4 women, known as Gilgo 4, were discovered in 2010 in December, when authorities were searching for Shannan Gilbert, a sex worker who had vanished May 1st, 2010. Gilbert, 23, was reportedly last seen running through the gated community of Oak Beach, leaving a client's home, according to the police case timeline. Her remains were not found until December 2011. Heuermann was connected to the deaths of Bartholomew, Waterman, and Costello in part by his wife's hair. It was found at the crime scenes and led authorities to believe that items used in the killing, such as the burlap sacks and tape, came from their home. Cell phone data and DNA obtained by a discarded slice of pizza were also used to link Heuermann to the deaths. The court documents released Tuesday also detailed how undercover agents followed Heuermann's 26-year-old daughter onto Long Island Railroad and used her discarded Java Monster can to link him to the slains. Oh, that's new information. Heuermann's wife and children were traveling out of state during all the times of the killings. The documents state this allowed him unfettered time. We already read all that. You know, it was easier for him to commit the crimes with his family gone. He was arrested in July as detectives surrounded him outside Manhattan. The remains of Barnyard Barnes were discovered along Ocean Parkway on December 13th, 2010, according to authorities. Her remains were found along the remains of Costello and Waterman. We know that they all worked as escorts on Craigslist. Barnyard Barnes' sister, Melissa Cann, became emotional as she talked about the deaths. She said her sister is more than how she's being portrayed. She was first and foremost a loving mother, a caring sister, and a giving friend. With the loss of Maureen came unimaginable pain and panic. My life shattered with the confirmation of Maureen's death. Several other sets of human remains were uncovered during the search for Gilbert, including the partial remains of Jessica Taylor and the remains of 24-year-old Valerie Mack, a female toddler and a man. The toddler's mother and an unidentified person. Heuermann is not suspected in all the deaths, and he has not been charged in the death of Gilbert. So his next hearing is scheduled February 6th. We have been following this. I truly believe, and it's just my opinion, that he is linked to all these other ones that we had just read through. I just think that it's way too coincidental that he just happens to be dumping his victims in the same area as all these other ones that were dumped there too. I just don't believe in coincidences like that. And I just know that until they have solid evidence to tie him, you know, there's just no way that they can just say, yes, for sure, he must have done them all. You know, like we need everything to be kind of linked appropriately so that the justice can be done appropriately too. But it's in my opinion that he's linked to those other people that were found out there and the toddler as well. I don't know how you guys are feeling about it. Yeah, Lamb's Bond 007 says, how long was he getting away with it? Yeah, it's like this has all been going on since some of these victims that said, 2007 they went missing. Now, did it escalate in 2007? And there's other ones that we just don't know about. There's rumors that he's tied to other killings out in Vegas where he visited. There's rumors that he's tied to Carolinas where his brother lived. It's just a lot of questions. And hello, Aries, Kathy. I see everyone who has joined. Thank you guys so much for being here. I do want to play a little bit of the press coverage that was put out today. So give me a second to share my screen. And again, this is just a case that is kind of close to me in a way, because up until 6 months ago, I mean, I didn't live around here, but now I'm living in Long Island. This is kind of local to me now. I have a friend here who is familiar with the area more so than I am, and we've already planned to kind of visit these places, like the beach and parts where the remains were found. So stay tuned for boots on the ground stuff. I know that other creators have done this already, but you don't get ATS news coverage like that just yet. So I'll put my own spin on it. And I hope you guys like my own coverage of going to the scenes and seeing things firsthand. Maybe we could even drive by his house. Again, there's a lot of signs nowadays pretty much saying like, please don't like loiter here, don't stop here and stare. Like I wouldn't do anything that was disrespectful, but I think driving by the house and just seeing where this serial killer lived would be interesting. So this is around 23 minutes. I haven't watched it all. I want to watch it with you guys. Yeah, it would be like a little field trip, Melmac. Crime Watch Lover, good to see you. All right, so let's listen to this together. I haven't watched this, like I said, so it'll be my reaction in real time. Hi, Music City Mom, good to see you. Yeah, we actually, she said, I think it's warmer in Long Island than Nashville. So today, actually last night was the first time we seen snow. So it actually stuck. It's been warm here, much warmer than where I previously lived, which was upstate New York. And I used to get a lot of lake effect snow. So I did see pictures of Tennessee from CDT who sent it to me. And I was shocked to see all the snow that she had gotten. And speaking of CDT, we'll be doing another live stream on the Watts case sometime this week, whenever it's convenient for her, since she'll be joining me. Usually I go on Fridays, but in case she would rather go another day, just stay tuned for that live stream. And hello, Marshall Dove and everybody else. All right, so let's watch this, guys. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't. After this, I do want to play a little long crime segment that they had done. I won't play the whole 17 minutes of it, but there is some parts that I want to watch with you guys. So let's just get into it, and here we go.
Just before I say anything else, I just want to preface my remarks. At this stage, these are just allegations. We are going to, we look forward to proving them in court. We're here to discuss the superseding indictment. The only change in that indictment is that we've charged the murder of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, which occurred in July of 2007. And that is included in the murder of the other three women, that being Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. Before I discuss the indictment, I want to as always, I want to thank our task force partners, Suffolk County Police Department. We have, among others, we have Acting Commissioner Rob Waring. This is Rob's first appearance. Now that he's acting commissioner, I know he's going to take a more active role in this case, which we welcome. We're also Homicide Lieutenant Kevin Byer and his team is here as well. We thank them for their hard work. As always, my partner Errol Toulon from the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, we thank them for their efforts. Errol is here with us. We have our New York State partners. We have Major Steve Udice and Captain Chris Casal. We want to thank them for their assistance. The FBI, part of the FBI team is here as well. We have supervising special agents Mike Lewis and Don Ansbacher. I want to thank them for their continued assistance in this case. I have my team, which I frequently forget to thank. I'll take the opportunity to thank them. Our chief investigator, Rich Zacharis, and his team, ADA's Larry Opizzo, Nick Santamartino, Andrew Lee, and Michelle Haddad. I want to thank them for their continued efforts in this case, sure. It's a little far from my face, but in addition to those task force partners, we've also received receiving assistance from the United States Secret Service, which are helping us with the downloads of a lot of the smart devices, as well as the Nassau County Police Department, Pat Ryder, as well as the Nassau County District Attorney's Office. Their assistance has been invaluable as well, so we want to thank them. And most importantly of all, I think I want to thank and acknowledge the victims' family members, many of them who are here. I want to thank them for their continued support and advocacy, not only for their family members, but for victims everywhere. And I think it's important that we keep in mind what this case is about. Maureen Brainerd Barnes was 25 years of age when she lost her life. Melissa Barthelemy was 24. Megan Waterman was 22, and Amber Costello was 27. This is what this case is about. this case should be about. And you know, I'll confine my remarks about Maureen, but we could say the same thing about the other three women. You know, Maureen was, you know, she was an intellectual. She was a writer. She was an artistic person. She cared very deeply about the people that she loved. She fiercely protected them. She was a devoted sister, devoted mother, devoted daughter, and she's sorely missed by those that loved her. And you know I speak for the entire task force when I say it's been an honor and a privilege to work these cases and to provide that, you know, small measure of closure for the family members. And again, these are just allegations, and we'll continue to work the case. We look forward to proving the allegations in court. But again, this case is about those victims. So I just ask that we all keep that in mind. As I've said, we've charged the murder of Maureen Brainerd Barnes to add to the already charged murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. The defendant is charged with murder in the second degree, not murder in the first degree, because for murder in the first degree, you have to commit 3 murders within a 24-month period, and the numbers just don't work out. Maureen was murdered in July of 2009. I'm sorry, July of 2007. Melissa was murdered in July of 2009. Megan, June of 2010, and Amber in September of 2010. So that just didn't. The numbers didn't work out for murder in the first degree as to the Brainerd Barnes murder. So this indictment marks a change in the investigation. The grand jury investigation of the so-called Gilgo 4 is over. It has been concluded. And we will proceed with those cases in court. And again, we look forward to proving the allegations. But there should be no mistake. The work of the grand jury is continuing. Now we've talked about the transition from the grand jury to the prosecution. Well, with regard to those other bodies and those other murders, the grand jury, the task force will continue to investigate those cases. They'll be investigated through the grand jury, and when it is appropriate, and if we have anything to say, we will say it at that time. But we're going to let that investigation play out. You know, before I turn it over for questions, I'll just talk about the bail letter. The bail letter discloses some further information on the case. Obviously, it's not all of the evidence in the case, but it does disclose some. So I'll synopsize that and open it up for questions at the end. With regard to the first part of the bail letter, it indicates that the task force has established that the defendant's family was out of state during Maureen Brainerd Barnes' murder, just as they were out of state during the murder of the other 3 victims. The family had checked into a hotel in Atlantic City in July 6th of 2007, and they remained there till approximately July 20th of 2007. And both the documentary evidence as well as witness statements have indicated that during the time of Maureen Brainerd Barnes' disappearance in on or about July 9th of 2007, Heuermann was not with his family. He joined them sometime thereafter. We also recovered 2 burner phones from the defendant at the time of his arrest. The phone ending in 1697 was recovered from his office, and the phone 2671 was recovered from his person. With regard to the phone ending in 1697, again, we see the same repetitive activity on that phone. It was used to contact numerous sex workers. We also were able to use it to identify an alias, Andrew Roberts, which was a known alias being used by the defendant. We were also able to recover a fraudulent email account, which is sandbagger303@gmail.com. The Sandbagger email address was used similar to the T-Hawk fraudulent account. The T-Hawk was used after Sandbagger, but the Sandbagger account was used once again to search for torture porn and info on the Gilgo case, on the Gilgo investigation, and victims' families. The defendant was particularly interested in the cellular telephone.
I just have to unpause it real quick and just reiterate how absolutely disturbing it is. Like, we kind of have read it over and over about the type of material, explicit material that he was searching. But when you really think about like what he's looking at, it's just so beyond disturbing and unsettling. And then to know what these girls went through, it's also very unsettling and scary to think about. And they, not judging them for what their occupation was. They're trying to provide some of them for their children. And they never knew that this was going to be the last night that, they'd walk out of the house and say goodbye to their kids, specifically Maureen, to her 7-year-old daughter. So I just hope that this escalates well in court and that there's enough evidence to charge Rex, because I have no doubt that he is the Lisk serial killer and that he is responsible for sure for Maureen's death as well as the other girls. And hello, Melissa Jade, Criminality, Alex Erickson. I saw Johnny come in. It's good to see you guys. And I need to catch up on all the new stuff that you guys have been putting out on your channels and just chat with you guys. I'm trying to get back in the swing of things since I was out of town. So I'm so glad you guys are here.
Technology being not only used by the FBI, but specifically by the FBI in this case. We also recovered numerous electronic devices from the defendant, including a number of laptops, smartphones, tablets. From that, we learned that the defendant undertook numerous searches for software that could assist in erasing or wiping data from computer and digital devices such as Easy Hide IP and Shredder X. He used those two applications to destroy evidence in this case. We see that he continued to make prostitution-related searches before, during, and after the disappearance and murder of the 4 victims in this case. Notably, on one laptop that was recovered from the house, there was an attempt to shred evidence shortly before the defendant met with and murdered Melissa Barthelemy. Another laptop recovered in the house accessed Amber Costello's Backpage ad on September 1st, 2010 at approximately 9:03 p.m. And that is just hours before the ruse occurred around midnight on September 2nd. So the way the timeline works is on 9:03, that laptop that was recovered from the defendant's house was used to access Amber Costello's Backpage ad. Thereafter, at about 11:33, the burner phone that was used to kill Amber Costello contacted Amber Costello's phone from Massapequa Park, and later at 12:05, that same phone accessed that Amber Costello's phone, but this time the phone had moved from the Massapequa Park area to the West Babylon area where Amber Costello lived, and then back to Massapequa Park. So that is significant evidence as well. I think the biggest change is the DNA evidence, and we've received significant DNA evidence between the time of the first arraignment and this time, which I'll synopsize for you. At this time, we've always spoken, right from the very beginning, we spoke about the 5 hairs of significance that were recovered from 3 of the 4 burial sites of the women. So I'll just go through that. We earlier reported on mitochondrial DNA evidence as to 3 of those hairs. We now have nuclear DNA results for all 5 of the hairs. So I'll go through it. The first, the most significant hair for the purposes of the superseding indictment was the hair that was found on Brainerd Barnes. It was found on the buckle of the belt that secured her lower body, and we also found three hairs at the site of Megan Waterman's burial. We found 2 female hairs and 1 male hair. The male hair was found at the bottom of the burlap that Megan Waterman was wrapped in, and the 2 female hairs were found around the head area, 1 at the top of the burlap and 1 near the tape that was used to restrain Megan Waterman's head.
Just to correct some of the things that we had read in the articles, they kept referring it to burlap bags and burlap sacks. From what we have, and even from what the district attorney is calling it here, it was burlap that is used for hunting. So it's not necessarily a bag that they were put in or a sack. It's actually some sort of like wrapping. We've shown it on previous live streams in regards to this case that you can reference. But I just wanted to correct that because mainstream media kind of keeps calling it burlap sacks and burlap bags. Here, the district attorney is just calling it burlap. And in other official statements, I think maybe even the PCA, it's referred to as like burlap wrap. So it's stuff that you can buy like a hunting store or something like that. And they use it to kind of camouflage things like when they're hunting and all that.
The fifth hair was a female hair that was found in the area of Amber Costello's head. Now, at the time of the original arraignment, we reported on mitochondrial DNA results for 3 of those hairs. With regard to the Megan Waterman hair that was found outside the head area, it was consistent with the genetic profile of both Asa, the mitochondrial DNA profile of both Asa and Victoria Heuermann, and you could exclude the rest of the population to 99.69% of the rest of the population. With regard to the one male hair of significance that was found on the burlap with Megan Waterman, again, that genetic result was consistent with the defendants, and 99.96% of the population could be excluded. And then finally, we had the mitochondrial results with regard to the female hair found at the Costello burial site. And that was consistent with the genetic profiles of both Asa and Victoria Heuermann, and that was to an exclusion of 99.98% of the rest of the population. And if you remember the science of mitochondrial DNA, unlike nuclear DNA, you inherit that solely from your mother. So a mother and a child will have identical mitochondrial DNA profiles. So that is the mitochondrial results. We now have nuclear DNA profiles on all 5 of the questioned hairs, and we use this using.
So far, we've had him kind of state that they have digital evidence, digital metadata forensic evidence from his phone, from his laptop. So his laptop searched these sex workers that they've linked to him and Maureen specifically. They have his phone, the burner phones, multiple of them that have linked him and the victims. And then also he's going on and on about this DNA, which is very, very vital in solidifying a conviction against Rex Heuermann. So that's all great news. And thank you, B. Crumbs, for 1, for being here. For 2, thank you for gifting 10 memberships, and welcome to all the members. I'm so happy to see that. And thank you for being a member for 5 months. That's awesome. And I really appreciate your support. I know you've been around since the Watts days. So yeah, this guy is so donezo. Yeah, it seems like there's really, really solid evidence against him for sure. And which is good news, especially since this whole case has kind of dragged on for so many years. I mean, right now we can call it decades. And I do hope that those other victims on the island that were found who are not linked to any perpetrator yet, I do hope that there is progression in their cases as well.
The SNP or SNP process, and with regard to the hair found on Maureen Brainerd Barnes on that belt buckle, it was 7.9 trillion times more likely to have come from someone with the identical genetic profile as Asa Ellerup. With regard to the first hair that we got the mitochondrial DNA profile on, the female hair on Megan Waterman, that is 2.374 times 10 to the 48th power as likely to have come from someone matching the genetic profile of Asa Ellerup. And the way that that number is expressed, that's scientific expression, I'm told. So that's basically 2.374, and you add 48 zeros to that. So that's a number so large it doesn't even exist. A name for it doesn't even exist. With regard to the second hair that was found on the tape by the head of Maureen, of Megan Waterman, That was also consistent with a person with the same genetic profile as Asa Ellerup, and that was 2.778 times 10 to the 488th power. Could exclude the rest of the population. With regard to the male hair, that again, that was we received the mitochondrial DNA profile with regard to that. The nuclear DNA profile on that was 1.48 times 10 to the 169th power, as to come from someone sharing the same genetic profile as the defendant. And finally, with regard to Amber Costello, we received the nuclear DNA profile on that, and that was 4.654 times 10 to the 63rd power, as likely to have come from someone with the same genetic profile as his daughter, Victoria Heuermann. So again, the mitochondrial DNA for mother and daughter are going to be the same. Nuclear are going to be separate. Everyone has a separate nuclear DNA profile except for identical twins. We believe these DNA results are significant. Nuclear DNA, as illustrated, is much more discriminate, and the SNP technology that was utilized allows you to get nuclear DNA results from hair. This is, cutting edge. We talked earlier, and the questions were asked with regard to mitochondrial DNA. And is mitochondrial DNA analysis cutting edge? Not really. It's been around since 1996. It's been, used in courts in the United States since about 1996, I think. This SNP process is cutting edge. There are a couple of cases around the country where it's being used, but no finished cases, I believe. But it is scientifically accepted in both the medical and forensic community. It's used in the familial DNA context, so the science is certainly extremely solid. And the good thing about it is it's allowed us to differentiate between those Victoria Heuermann and Asa Ellerup hairs. So that's important. So that's basically the bail letter. I'll open it up to questions, but I just want to end with, we said at the very beginning that we were going to take a comprehensive look at the Gilgo 4 cases. I think we've done that. We've completed that. We used the grand jury process. Now we move to the second phase. The second phase being the prosecution of these 4 cases, as well as continuing to use the grand jury to investigate the other cases, the other bodies, and the other murders.
Okay, so that's reassuring, and which kind of goes along with your question, Alex. Wonder how many more he will be charged with. So he's reassuring everybody here that not only will they solidify a conviction for these 4 victims, but they are continuing their investigation into the other victims that were found out there. Because I think that for the most part, even though law enforcement has stated that Shannan Gilbert's death is not tied to Rex, there's questions being risen. Johnny Ray, the lawyer that was representing Shannan and another victim's family, has been very outspoken about his information that he's gathered in his own investigation tying Rex to Shannan. We'll play some of that, some of his statements in a moment. It's very interesting for sure. I agree. And burlap would pick up straight hairs easily. Shout out to COVID for making my hair fall out. Yeah, for real. COVID and postpartum hair loss got me really bad in 2021. But I'll tell you, those vitamins do help a lot, the biotin.
Which we think are investigatively significant. We're certainly going to do that. We're going to use the same methodology. We use the grand jury. And if we come to a result in the time, and when the time is appropriate, we'll have further comment on that. So that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, regarding the ongoing investigation, how many recovered bodies, other victims, are part of that investigation?
So we're not going to talk about it because we're going to wait until we're able, we'll talk about that in court. But suffice to say that it will be a comprehensive investigation with regard to a number of the bodies.
Is Melissa's family here?
So I think later the families will be speaking. They have an attorney that they're going to be speaking.
You mentioned that you had.
There's going to be I'm sorry not to cut you off, but right after this.
I in terms
Oh,
of
no, I'm
their-
sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off.
Sorry.
I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
So you mentioned that the secret.
Sorry, I'm just pausing it real quick. What is that woman's name in the right corner there? She represented Amber Fry. Remember her? And she's also represented other famous people too, or big cases. I'm just curious, like, why is she there? Does anyone know? Gloria Allred. Thank you, Mel Mac. I appreciate you. And hi, MK. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good 2024 so far. Yeah, what's she doing there? I'm curious. Does she live in Long Island? Kathy, do you know?
Good service helped you guys out with the devices, downloading devices, and finding out about what data had been destroyed through those. Who's helping out with the DNA? Like, why was there a second rollout of DNA?
So we use, of course, our excellent Suffolk County Crime Lab has helped us with DNA analysis. We've also
All right, Caroline. I knew one of you guys would know. Gloria Allred is representing victims' relatives. Okay. I was unaware of that. So that's interesting. She's one of the lawyers. I don't know who's. Okay. Wow, this is going to be huge. The only problem, too, with covering this case is New York doesn't allow cameras in the courtroom. So once we get to trial, if we get there, if he doesn't plead guilty and come up with some plea deal, but like, it's just, I hate not being able to see the courtroom. I will say that.
utilize 2 outside forensic labs. We haven't disclosed those names just because we want them to do their work. We've disclosed some of those reports, so the defense is aware of the names of those 2. We just haven't disclosed them. And their work continues.
In terms of the grand jury that you were talking about, the investigation of the Gilgo 4 you said has ended. Is the same grand jury now going to be investigating the remainder of the murders?
Yes, the grand jury.
He literally said that before he took questions, that they were going to still investigate the other murders out on the. This is why the press is so annoying sometimes. And they ask the most, like, she only had one question to ask and she just wasted it because he had already asked that. So Marshall Dove says, was the belt buckle attached to a belt? I assume. Why would he leave that? Yes, it was. And the belt buckle had like initials of like his family. It wasn't RH, but it was another, I can't remember the letter, but it was definitely, we speculated that perhaps it belonged to his father, but yeah.
Investigation with regard to Gilgo continues, yes.
And is the same
Yes.
grand jury?
Would Melissa Can, because she is right here now, like to say?
Well, I think there are going to be a couple of words spoken by members of the family after we're done with ours.
Thank you, Mel Mac. His
Right here.
grandfather's initials.
Right, can you put into context in layman's terms the DNA and how and why it's significant in the case against Mr. Heuermann?
So I think with regard to the DNA, first you have what we had previously was mitochondrial DNA. There are, and heretofore, mitochondrial DNA was really the only DNA you could use to get DNA, to extract DNA from hair. So that's good about mitochondrial DNA. The numbers are big, but not as big as with nuclear DNA. And because you inherit your genetic profile from your mother, there are a lot of people walking around with identical mitochondrial genetic profiles. And there are not as many base pairs with mitochondrial DNA. I think there's like 12,500, a little bit more base pairs in mitochondrial DNA. There's 3 billion base pairs with nuclear DNA. So nuclear DNA is like sort of the gold standard. If you could get to nuclear DNA, the numbers are going to be much larger. So you want to get to nuclear DNA because other than the numbers are high and other than identical twins, everyone's DNA profiles.
Mr. Tierney, of the 10 sets of remains, you've already identified 4 of them being found between the years 2007 and 2010. Can you share with us the years that you believe the other bodies were buried?
No.
Heuermann's attorney says nuclear DNA came out of nowhere. He, up until now, didn't believe there was any. This is obviously, as you said, more certain as far as the case. How confident are you in the case? And what do you have to say about it?
Sure. I think that nuclear DNA existed in the hair since they were first recovered in 2010. And now the science has caught up. That's I would say that's a good break for justice, a good break for the investigation. Others might disagree, but the fact that we were able to utilize technology to obtain a nuclear DNA result that we are confident in, and that we are confident in defending in court and making admissible, these are all good things.
So what took so long with Maureen Brainerd Barnes? I mean, the other ones we knew in July, the three. What took so long? Can you speak to her circumstances specifically, especially because she did have hair allegedly on the belt?
So,
okay, so before he answers this, I'm going to give my guess what took so long. I don't know if this is just me being a pessimist, but what if it has something to do with, it being an election year and they just want to kind of drag out this type of media and news and put it in the spotlight? Maybe that's why he was a suspect to her in July when the others were, when he was charged with the others. But again, I could be wrong. I'm watching this in real time with you guys. So let's hear what he has to say, why it took so long.
we spoke about the need for investigative secrecy, and as we were working through, and at the time we thought it was necessary to take the case down. We had completed 3 out of the 4 investigations, with Maureen Brainerd Barnes being the 4th that we did not complete. One of the main reasons why we didn't complete the Maureen Brainerd Barnes investigation is because we knew we had this hair, and we were awaiting, among other things, we were awaiting the result of that nuclear DNA result, which didn't occur at the time of the original takedown. So that was the main reason.
Can you just speak to what this moment means for the task force, for the family?
It's funny too, because he kind of stumbled over his words there and scratched his face and said that was one of the reasons, but doesn't explain like the rest of the reasons. But either way, I'm just happy that he is being charged with her murder. We very much thought that he was connected to hers and that he was a suspect for sure in hers. So I guess we're moving forward.
This charge related to the 4th victim of the Gilgo Beach.
Well, I think it means a lot to the task force, because we know that it provides a small measure of closure for the families, and so we're really happy to provide that for them. We know that there's a lot of hard work to go, that these are allegations, that we need to prove them, but it's nice to be able to let the families know that, notwithstanding a lot of the things that have been said, we've always focused the case in the right direction. We always kept the victims in mind, and we were able to obtain a result which we're pleased with.
And the attorney, I just want to clarify, the grand jury which convened for the Gilgo Beach, it's the same one, still actively investigating.
Correct.
Okay, and so in addition to, the defense also tried to cast some doubt on some of the DNA evidence, but they also said something to the effect of, just because an individual solicits prostitutes, it doesn't make them a killer. In regards to the new evidence with the burner phones, is there anything you'd like to share with that?
No, I think that's what trials are for, and we look forward to proving these allegations in court.
And can you speak just a little bit to Maureen Brainerd Barnes' specific circumstances? I know we've spoken about all 4 as a group. What specifically does your office know about the circumstances of her death so far?
Well, I mean, I think that the circumstances of all the 4 women are very similar. Their backgrounds are similar. Unfortunately, their deaths are very similar, and that's why we focused on the Gilgo Beach.
And speaking of deaths and all that being very similar, occupation, age, even the way that they looked, petite, Shannan Gilbert falls into that category. So I really truly believe that Shannan was murdered, and I'm really feeling like it was Rex. Again, that's just my opinion.
But it's what we're willing to disclose about that death is everything that we've talked about now, with regard to the utilization of the 4 separate burner phones to lure these women out to Massapequa Park, where they were unfortunately murdered.
In the document released today, there was talk about what was in some of the storage units, but not much. Can you talk about what else was found? Because we know that you guys were there for a long time.
Sure. So, basically what is required to us of prosecutors is we have grand jury material, which is secret, and then we have stuff which is publicly disclosed. So we comment on information that's publicly disclosed. There are literally mountains of information that have not been publicly disclosed, but I'm ethically enjoined from speaking about those. So I can't speak about those. So I won't. That's it?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
All right. Switching gears again, I'm just getting caught up in some new true crime videos and live streams. This, again, I'm not going to play the whole 17 minutes. I've skipped ahead. This is from Law and Crime. It says Gilgo Beach murders and mysterious case of Shannan Gilbert, everything we know. Do you guys want to watch the whole thing, the whole 17 minutes? Because I did skip ahead, but I'm feeling like we could watch it all if you wanted. It's probably going to repeat a lot of stuff we already knew, but was it secured to the remains law enforcement left purposely? That I'm not sure on. Have you guys seen this? It came out, I think, yesterday. Long Island is a place without many good dumping spots. The stretch of beach is one of them. Who else used it? Regular crooks, maybe too. Right. I mean, so then we have to say, well, if those other deaths aren't tied to Rex, then we have another serial killer on Long Island. Like, it's just, there is a lot of people here, but at the same time, it is an island. And for them to kind of know that area of beach and that secluded area, it is an area that you would think that a local would be familiar with and all that. So it seems like people haven't seen this. So I guess I'll play the whole thing. We can just hang out together. So how many victims do they think he might have killed? So far, he's charged with 4 of them. And there's at least another handful that are not tied to a perpetrator and have not, some of them I don't even think have a name, which is sort of an MO for somebody who kills sex workers, because sometimes sex workers don't have family that are out there looking for them. It's just an occupation that obviously has its own dangers, but obviously it's an occupation where friends and family aren't aware sometimes that that's what their loved one was doing for money. So they don't maybe even know that that's a possibility to be them, and they just think that their loved one's missing or something. So it's a lot of unanswered questions and mystery, I guess.
That was Shannan Gilbert calling 911 on Long Island.
Hold on,
in
let me rewind it.
2010. She would be found 17 months later in a marshy area nearby. Her family.
State police. Yeah, there's somebody after me. I'm sorry? There's somebody after me.
That was Shannan Gilbert calling 911 on Long Island in May 2010. She would be found 17 months later in a marshy area nearby. Her family has fought for years for answers about what happened to her. Those calls only growing louder since the arrest of Rex Heuermann, the man accused of murdering 3 women and dumping their bodies on Long.
So Kathy says, in her opinion, from being a local here, that there are a lot of places to kind of dump bodies. Do you think, Kathy, that this was one person dumping in that area of Rex, or do you think it's possible that there's multiple people dumping those bodies out there? I'm curious what a local's opinion is, and thank you for all your comments and chat.
Long Island's Gilgo Beach. The attorney for Gilbert's family is here with the latest on the search for answers in Shannan Gilbert's death. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is a special edition of Crime Fix, where we're looking at the case of Shannan Gilbert, a sex worker who died on Long Island in 2010. The search for Shannan Gilbert led to the gruesome discovery of 4 women's bodies on Gilgo Beach in 2010. Those 4 women, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Amber Costello, Megan Waterman, and Melissa Bartholomew, became known as the Gilgo Four. Their bodies wrapped in camouflage burlap and dumped on a stretch of Ocean Parkway.
Okay, so notice how she says wrapped in camouflage burlap. So she doesn't say that they're burlap bags or burlap sacks. So that's good because that's more accurate. So Allie asked how many live on, what's the population on Long Island? So some of them went missing in 2007 and they're not found till 2010, 2011. So I don't know those stats, but as of the last one on Google right now, it says 7.6 million. So I guess that is a significant number. You know, does that mean that statistically there could be another serial killer around here? Definitely could be, for sure. So what if they ran into each other as they're dumping these bodies, you know? And not only are there that idea of like, okay, so what's the coincidence that all these people are out there together and they're not all with Rex, but a lot of them were missing around the same time. So that would mean that not only were there multiple serial killers in Long Island, but they all decided to kind of act on their urges around the same years. It's weird.
All of the women had been bound with tape or belts. All 4 were escorts who'd gone missing in 2009 and 2010. After finding the bodies, police knew there was a serial killer on the loose. Shannan's case, though, was tough. It was a bit different. She was an escort like the other women.
So they do try to say, well, she had her driver with you, or the other women were alone. So it seemed like it was different. And why would Rex risk that? Well, the person who saw Amber Costello, one of the victims, leave, um, was the eyewitness that kind of identified a Chevy Avalanche. So, and in the same sense, Rex kind of was risky in that murder that has been tied to him, you know, to let an eyewitness kind of see him in his vehicle pick up Amber Costello. So I do think that even though this has like a driver and other people involved, I think that it's still possible that, you know, if he has this urge, if his wife is out of town, I don't know if she was during the time that Shannan went missing, but you know, does that all match also? Is it something that Rex kind of risked because of the time constraint or something like that? Marshall Dove says, do I think the Atlantic City murders of 4 sex workers found in the canal were Rex? I can't say 100%, but I wouldn't be surprised.
But she wasn't found in the same way. Suffolk County Police described that evening in a video posted in May of 2022.
Shannan Gilbert, a Craigslist sex worker and resident of Jersey City, New Jersey, traveled from Manhattan to meet a client, Joseph Brewer, at his home at 8 The Fairway, Oak Beach, New York. Shannan was driven to Oak Beach from Manhattan by her driver, Michael Pack. Neither one was familiar with the area. Neither one had been there before.
Shannan Gilbert called 911 from Joseph Brewer's home after being there for a little while.
There's somebody after me.
Okay, where are you?
There's somebody after me.
Where are you, ma'am?
I don't know.
You're driving right now?
No, I'm inside the house.
I'm sorry?
I'm inside the house.
What house?
I don't know. Can you trace where I am?
I'm sorry?
Can you trace where I am?
No, I can't.
At one point, you can hear Joseph Brewer and Shannan Gilbert's driver, Michael Pack, trying to talk to her on the 911 call.
Somebody's after me. Please.
Are you in Suffolk County or Nassau County?
I'm in Long Island.
Where on Long Island are you?
So we've broken down and listened to this 911 call numerous times. So if you want our commentary on it, check out those other streams. Pepper says, was there evidence of a burn barrel on his property, or did I imagine that? So they did, I believe, bring a burn barrel into evidence. His neighbors also had statements stating that he burned his trash regularly.
No. No, stop, no.
It's a little hard to understand some of what's being said, but what is clear is that the client, Joseph Brewer, wants Shannan Gilbert to leave his home, and her driver, Michael Pack, is trying to get her to do just that as the 911 call taker tries to figure out Shannan's location.
What's the matter? Are you okay? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to me? Why? Huh? Yeah, I don't know. But it was transferred to me. Why? You gonna tell me? It's coming to, I think it's Suffolk County on the Suffolk County Manhattan. Why are you gonna call Suffolk County? I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Shannan Gilbert ran from Joseph Brewer's house to another house owned by a man named Gus Coletti. Shannan arrived at Gus Coletti's house and he tried to help her.
Somebody at you? Huh? Hello? Hello?
Teacup asked, do you guys think the wife at least knew about her husband's lifestyle? Johnny Ray comes out with his allegations about people he's spoken to that pretty much say that she was in on getting some of these sex workers at the house and partaking in some of the activities, and that they attended swinger parties and stuff like that. So I think there was a level of her knowing what he was about. It's hard to say if she knew more than just he liked to get sex workers, but anything is possible. Her hair being on some of the victims, I know that she's out of town and stuff like that, but we honestly don't know when those victims were put out in their dumping ground. So she might have been out of town during the murders, but maybe during the disposal she helped with or something like that. Again, this is just an opinion. I'm not saying that that's what I think, but I do think that there's room for maybe something else that we just don't know yet about this case. But right now it seems like they are solely just saying it was him and not her. So, and we'll hear more of what Johnny Ray has to say about people he's interviewed that talk about the wife.
Don't keep so hurt. What are you doing?
Shannan then ran away, and Gus Coletti called 911.
Yes, I live at Oak Beach in the association. There's a young girl about 14 years old running around here screaming, and there's some guy trying to follow her.
Then a woman
Okay,
named
bye,
Barbara
Chase.
Brennan called 911 after Shannan Gilbert began knocking on her door.
Some woman is knocking at my door.
What town are you in?
Oak Beach Association.
What's the nearest corner street now?
Ocean Parkway. She says she's in danger.
Do you know her or no?
No, I don't. I'm not letting her in.
What happened to Shannan Gilbert after that remains a mystery. Suffolk County Police believe she ran into a marshy area next to the Oak Beach Association neighborhood.
Yes, Alex. So she said, isn't that wife making a lot of money on that show or something? So she was asked to be a part of some documentary. I believe it's going to be on Peacock. I think it's the same documentary crew that is doing other cases as well, including, what was it, Delphi? There's other ones too that are going to be out there. It's going to be like a new true crime series, but she definitely signed up for this new documentary, and she went to court a couple months ago with the whole camera crew, and it was all over the news. And yeah, she went from not really supporting him and filing for divorce to saying that she wants to see the evidence laid out. And we heard in the article that I read earlier that she was at the hearing yesterday.
Her remains were found there 17 months later, along with her personal belongings. Police said that they believe she drowned. A video posted by police shows us what that marshy area is like.
This is drone footage and footage shot from the ground showing the marshland.
Yes. So Pepper, he was meeting them from Craigslist because it was back in the early 2000s. That was very much how they met up. That was before like Tinder and all these other apps for dating and all that. So it was Craigslist. And then I seen another question, how old the daughter is. I believe she's 24. I could be wrong, but I think she's around the age of the victims, which was what was really crazy. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong too.
It was taken at the same time of year and time of day as when Shannan went missing. These reeds can grow over 12 feet tall. They can disorient someone inside them, causing them to lose a sense of direction. One cannot tell where the highway is or where the bay is.
Suffolk County Police believe that Shannan ran along that trench created to control mosquitoes. Her personal belongings were found north of the trench, and her remains found near Ocean Parkway. The head of detectives said the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit does not believe Shannan was murdered.
BAU's opinion, based on their review of Shannan's case, the scene, the 911 calls, and a psychiatrist review, is that Shannan Gilbert's death is not consistent with Shannan being the victim of violence or of a violent offender. Significant differences between Shannan's death and the circumstances surrounding the other victims' deaths were also highlighted by BAU. The Suffolk County Police Department is open to evaluate any evidence to be able to help us and all involved determine a definite cause of death.
Suffolk County Police have said that they believe Shannan Gilbert's death was an unfortunate accident. But the detectives have said they're open to seeing evidence and information that helps determine exactly how she died.
And now here's the other thing too, is so in other live streams, I've read Shannan's sister's statements from years ago. And I'm trying to remember exactly what was said, but pretty much they're under the impression that she was murdered and that this wasn't some accident. Hold on, I might have to sneeze. Anyways, guess it's not gonna come. She was found, I guess, and this isn't really reported much, but this was something that Shannan's sister shared, that she was found without her purse, her shoes, or her pants on. So if this was just some hysterical state that Shannan was in, we have to assume that she stripped down and went running into this marsh that way. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And it wasn't like she left her purse, shoes, and pants at that doctor's house or those areas that she was seen running around. It was still found near her body, but not like right next to. So it's just not adding up, in my opinion. And her family doesn't think so either.
The attorney representing the Gilbert family, John Ray, isn't buying the accident explanation.
Problem with the whole theory is very simple. It's absurd. It's not even close. And it's absurd for at least the reason that if you listen carefully to the detective, they have not a scintilla of evidence that she died of a tragic accident.
Right now, Shannan Gilbert's death is listed as undetermined. A private autopsy performed by Dr. Michael Bodden, hired by the family of Shannan Gilbert, said that she died as the result of being strangled.
We saw that the little hyoid bone, the bone in the neck, that if a woman is strangled, it's fractured. It was fractured. And Bodden declared that her killing was consistent, her death was consistent with homicide.
At times, Shannan Gilbert sounds like she might be unaware of her surroundings.
So they had gotten a medical examiner who said, yes, this is homicide. And obviously they had gotten another one who I think said inconclusive or something like that. Again, I could be wrong on that, but I know that there was more than one opinion given on her injuries. And in any other case where we see the hyoid bone broken, you know, when and what type of accident would that happen, you know, with her out in the marsh with no pants on, no shoes on, her belongings other places, not right next to her. It's just it's not making sense on so many levels.
Had she possibly used drugs that night, causing her to become disoriented?
They have no evidence of a drug use by her whatsoever. Brewer denies that there was any drugs. Pack denies that there were any drugs that she used that night. And when you listen to her, sometimes you hear that kind of dreamy-like voice. That's how she spoke in life. And, maybe she was using something, but nothing hallucinatory, nothing irrational.
And like honestly, the whole theory about, oh, she was in some state of drug induced, blah blah blah. There's a lot of situations where you can still be on drugs and know that you're in danger. So to me, just because she was on drugs, and again, there's been no proof that she was, her remains, I believe, were skeletal. So it was hard to kind of do some toxicology again. The details I'm a little hazy on, but I do know, like he said, that there's been no proof that that's what was taking place and that they have a list of drugs that were found in her system, etc. But I just think that that's a BS excuse. And again, you can still be intoxicated and know that you're in danger and you need help.
Her behavior was perfectly rational.
There's another strange twist in all of this. A man who lived in that neighborhood where Shannan went missing, Dr. Peter Hackett, called Shannan Gilbert's mother shortly after she went missing and claimed he had treated her and that he ran a wayward home for girls. That created a strange twist for police to deal with. Hackett has actually been discredited as somebody who
So
inserts
true,
himself into
Pepper.
situations, possibly looking for attention. Shannan Gilbert's family felt that Suffolk County Police didn't take the search for her seriously enough at first, costing precious time. Suffolk County Police officials have not indicated that they believe that Rex Heuermann is a suspect in Shannan Gilbert's death. But Nikki Brass, a former sex worker who claimed she went on a date with Rex Heuermann, said that she and Heuermann discussed Shannan Gilbert on their one and only meeting.
So they speculated, and both of them agreed that Shannan Gilbert had been murdered. And then he went on to say she was probably killed via a killing party, was the phrase, where people at the party left and then a group stayed and selected Shannan and murdered her. That was his opinion. Now, if that opinion came
Okay,
from
good night,
him or from
MK.
me,
Thanks for being here.
just an opinion. It comes from him. It could be more than an opinion. Could also just be one.
Earlier in the fall, John Ray appeared at a press conference with former Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison. They revealed information that they had received about a possible connection between Shannan Gilbert and Rex Heuermann from a banker who was moonlighting as a taxi driver in the fall of 2009.
She's called to go to that.
Okay, so these are some of the new developments that are kind of taking place in this case, that we haven't really covered. So I wanted to play this because I knew Law and Crime kind of touched on it. And this is Johnny Ray kind of linking Rex to Shannan Gilbert.
That place, and that there's a girl awaiting her who's locked in a bathroom and will come out if she flashes her lights and beeps the horn. And she goes there and does that several times. It doesn't work. But then suddenly a giant man who fits the description of Rex Heuermann comes out, and he's covering his face with his arms so he can't be seen, and he runs to a van or an SUV right nearby that's parked right there. She continues to flash her lights and beep her horn, and out comes a girl crying, shaking, very upset, and gets in her car. This girl turns out to be Shannan Gilbert.
Joining me to discuss the very latest in the case is somebody who's been involved in it for many, many years. He's John Ray. He represents the family of Shannan Gilbert and other families who are believed to be victims of the Long Island serial killer. So, John, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. What is the very latest that you can tell us? I know that we last kind of saw you when you were discussing how there had potentially been this interaction between Shannan Gilbert and Rex Heuermann many, many, many years ago.
Well, yes, that's all true. There's been other developments by way of new evidence that's come to me since I last presented evidence with the commissioner of the Suffolk County Police Department, Rodney Harrison. So I have new information. I can only imagine that the police do as well. So the grand jury still remains sitting on the case regarding Heuermann. It could For all we know, the grand jury has the ability to explore anything and could be looking at other people and other things as well. In the case, we don't know. That's all secret. So what I have is secret if I make it so or not. And everything I get, eventually I share it with the proper authorities, including the police, with the permission of the people who come forward to me and give me information. If they don't give me permission, I don't reveal it. If they don't want their names revealed, I
What
won't.
do you have, John? Do you have anything that you can reveal?
Well, yeah, in a very broad sense, I can. Several people, numerous people, I should say, have come forward to speak with me about what they know in the entire case since October 18th, when I went public with two of the witnesses, along with Rodney Harrison. And since then, I guess that show and that press conference triggered a lot more interest on the part of people who were, hanging in the background, maybe didn't want to remember what was, bad for them and so on. But a variety of people have contacted me since then from all different walks of life and geographic places who had an involvement with Rex Heuermann or with some of the people associated with him. And some of them may even affect the case of Shannan Gilbert right now.
John Ray says two of the witnesses have signed affidavits, and the information they've provided has been turned over to the Suffolk County Police and the Gilgo.
And that's the thing too, is a lot of people doubt John Ray's research and his investigation, but these are signed affidavits. They could get, I believe you could go to jail for lying on a signed affidavit. So it kind of puts more emphasis and value into the statements that were made, in my opinion.
Gilgo Beach Task Force. People continue to reach out to him to provide information, which he turns over to law enforcement if the witnesses authorize him to do so. Whether there's any connection between Shannan Gilbert's death and Rex Heuermann, that remains to be seen. Ray is skeptical, though, of Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup. Police have said in court documents that Ellerup was out of town when the three women, Melissa Barthelemy, Amber Costello, and Megan Waterman, were killed. However, Ellerup's DNA, specifically her hair, was found on the victims. Ellerup filed for divorce shortly after Heuermann's arrest, her attorney telling me she did so to protect herself financially. Now she and her children are working with Peacock exclusively on a documentary about the case, and they're reportedly receiving $1 million to do so.
That's triggered a lot of interest and boomerang. And while she initially had all the sympathy of the open-minded, so to speak, Americans who said, well, the poor woman, she's probably a victim too. And I said that wasn't true. I always said that. And I still maintain that. Now when she's managed to behave in the way she has, after pretending to divorce her husband, showing up at court and smiling back and forth at each other, and then getting all this money, using this as a money grab. The woman, as I said before, is a ghoul feeding on the dead.
So he has been so outspoken since Rex was arrested about the wife and his feelings towards her, and people have kind of criticized him for them. But let's face it, these remains, when they were discovered, were past the point of them being able to determine their time of death. So yes, she was out of town when these murders took place, but do we know that there was no help, once she came back in town? Or there's a lot of questions still that a lot of people have when it comes to the wife, and I'm curious what the comments on this video say, so we'll read them after.
That's changed the opinion roundly of her in America and what she's doing. Perhaps that change will affect the investigation. I hope it does, because I think she has real problems.
The grand jury investigation into the murders on Gilgo Beach is ongoing, and it's secret. There's been no word on whether there have been any new developments in Shannan Gilbert's case, or whether Suffolk County Police have changed their minds in thinking that Shannan's death was an accident. John Ray represents several of the victims' families, and he'd like to see some further investigation to see whether Heuermann is connected to Shannan or anyone else.
We don't know when those girls were killed. We know when they disappeared. So were they kept somewhere for a while before they were killed? This is a man who's a stalker, a psycho stalker, and a devoted stalker. Is this the kind of guy that would necessarily kill them, his prey right away, or hold them, tease them, torture them? As we know, they were tortured. So when were they killed? Was she still on vacation? When were they moved to where they ended up? How long did the bodies remain there? We don't know. Nobody knows. The DA can't know that unless somebody told him so.
It's important to note that Suffolk County Police have never, ever called Asa Ellerup a suspect, and Rex Heuermann has denied involvement in the murders through his lawyer. Anyone with information about Shannan Gilbert's death can call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-220-TIPS. That's it for this special edition of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you.
All right, I'm just going to scroll down and read some of these comments. Again, I mean, like he was saying, we don't know when everything took place. We know that she's out of town when they disappeared, but I think that there's a valid reason to kind of question her involvement if these other statements are true about her being involved with like the swinger lifestyle and all that. So it says, can't believe how this young lady shed the light and helped bring justice to so many, but not herself. So sad. So that's about Shannan. I'm not letting her in. The most devastating response to a woman banging on the door and fighting for her life. I almost don't blame that one neighbor who called the cops and said that there was a lady out there who wanted to come in. Like, who knows, what could have happened. You know what I mean? It's kind of sketchy in the middle of the night, letting somebody come into your house. She did the right thing by calling the cops. Finally, bringing it back to Shannan. We need this discussed much, much further. There's so much here to uncover. I am certain of this. Play back the 911 call in its entirety. And it's obvious to anyone she's paying attention that something was definitely wrong. Now that we're learning more about Rex, his wild parties, his years of sketchy behavior and interactions, stories from associates that experienced him, and as evidence continues to come to light, like how he enjoyed hunting victims down and so on, it's obvious that he was pursuing her with the help of someone. I believe someone got paid a lot of money delivering Shannan to Rex where he could finish doing what he does. I wonder if it was a police officer for several reasons, but regardless, definitely a middleman involved. It's worth noting that Rex established communication and repeated interactions with many of these women for a period before he actually killed them or chose to pursue them for that desire. Many of them, like Shannan, were very hesitant and suspicious of these guys, and he needed to overcome this in order to place them in vulnerable positions. One of them left her hotel room to get in his car and leave with him back to his place, which was highly unusual and out of character, according to those who knew her. Also, I don't believe he ever quit being who he is. I think he moved it elsewhere and probably went to locations with high rates of murders or missing persons and continued being the monster that he is. Or maybe like Atlantic City or Vegas. It doesn't just abruptly end. If anything, he toned it down. Atlantic City still has that unsolved 2006 case where 4 women were discovered side by side behind a now demolished motel building. Shockingly similar. This might even be his signature. How many other batches of 4 existent nationwide? It all began with the search for Shannan, though, yet she continues to be brushed aside as accidental, absolute nonsense. While direct proof requires evidence and sufficient connections being brought together by investigators, common sense and logic tells us, the general public, that she was murdered. And I totally believe that. I agree with that. And when he says something about, tying in law enforcement into covering things up still, we have to remember that law enforcement, the upper law enforcement persons, I should say, was involved with the sex trafficking ring in Long Island and was kind of tied to this type of lifestyle under his own pleasures. So it wasn't work related. It was, he was using sex workers himself. So, and he was one of the reasons why this kind of went under wraps for so long without an arrest, is he didn't want things to kind of get uncovered and his own stuff to be discovered. So I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Brody, Richard, you just got here. We are ending. I'm so sorry, but we will talk very soon, I'm sure. And thank you to those who donated the memberships, and for you guys that just hung out with me and kind of discussed this case. There's still a lot to uncover. We'll be following his next hearing is in February, the first week of February, I believe the 6th. So we'll catch those updates too. And then, like I said, we'll be doing another Watts live stream sometime this week. Usually I go on Fridays. I'll be waiting to hear back from CDT to see what day is more convenient for her. So join us back here in our deep dives into the Watts case. And again, I just appreciate my moderators and everyone else who joined tonight. Johnny, are you going to go live? Because I have no plans the rest of the night and would love to join one of your live streams. If you guys like just hanging out, you should definitely check out Johnny's channel. We just hang out and kind of decompress from true crime over there. So again, welcome to the new members, and thank you everyone who was here, and we will talk very soon. So goodbye, everybody.